This is SiriusXM Marine Weather, understanding the key features on a Simrad display. And we have three presenters. I'm Jeff Leach, work for SiriusXM Marine, and I'm based out of the DC office. My home is on the eastern shore of Maryland, not too far from Annapolis. And we have Scott Walton as well, which is he's part of the Navico team. Scott, tell us briefly what you do, if you would.
So I head up, I'm the category manager for all of the Americas, so Latin America, Canada, and the US for Simrad product development and software support and such.
Great, thank you. And from Tarpon Springs, right?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And then I'll speak for Dan because he's going to be speaking in a whole heck of a lot here in a few minutes. But Dan Dickerson is also from the DC office from the Annapolis, Maryland area. And Dan really heads up our shows, our events, our tech support, our customer facing interactions. So if any of you have questions or need support, Dan is probably your man, and we will have all of those resources at the end of this presentation. We're going to go through the most useful or the most common, I should say, features that include weather radar, lightning and storm cell attributes, wind and wave forecasts, and then marine zone reports and marine warnings. So Dan's going to walk us through each one of those features as they appear on your Simrad display.
So we're going to start by looking at our chart plotting screen. And this is pretty much what you see when you first turn your unit on and go to the charts page. And before I get into talking about SiriusXM features, I like to do a little bit of what I call housekeeping. I'd like you to make you aware of, how you can check to make sure your SiriusXM is working. So from your home screen, instead of going to the charts, if you go over to the settings menu, and then you scroll down here to where it says network. When you click on network, you're going to find a Sirius status bar that you can then click on. And that's going to tell you if you're subscribed. It's going to tell you what your signal strength is. And also there's a diagnose button. And for those of you that haven't looked at that diagnose button, it changed a little while back. It shows a little bit more than it used to. Now, when you click on it, not only does it give you the basics about your receiver, but it shows you the actual information about the specific layers of weather data. So it's going to give you the time that we updated the information and how many minutes it's been since your machine actually picked up an update. So it's kind of nice to be, if something's not working, if you're not getting wave height or something, you can go here and look and see, oh, well, I did, it should be there. So there must be something else. Or if this is blank, well, then there's an issue of some sort occurring. So it's really good data to have. So that's the housekeeping side. From there, we're going to jump into our number one feature that's used, and that's radar. So from the chart screen, all of your SiriusXM information is going to be found in your chart navigation mode on your Simrad or Lowrance or Brooks and Gatehouse device. So if we click on this button here, it's going to take us back to our chart page. And then you have to turn on the Sirius features. And you do that by going to the menu. And there's an overlay category. So you go to overlay and you're going to turn on the Sirius weather. And then when you get back to this menu, you'll notice you have an option below the overlay that now says weather options. If we go there, then I have choices for my specific weather layers. The first one being view. If we go into view, we can look at all sorts of information. And today we're talking about precipitation, otherwise known as radar. So this is a nice crisp picture of a storm that was recently in Jacksonville. And I've zoomed on it nice and tight here. Basically green, and wherever you put the cursor, if you look down in the corner, it's going to tell you what you're looking at. So we're looking at moderate rain right there. If I had the cursor sitting on the yellow area, it would say heavy rain, and the color scale basically goes from green to yellow, orange, and then red being the worst of it. And then there's a pink also that you want to stay out of the pink. That'll be hail. So that's how the weather appears on screen. It is pixelated. We do often get questions about these squares. It looks a little bit different than if you've been using a weather app on your phone. That's because we're limited on bandwidth. we're sending a signal from a satellite to that antenna on your boat that's only about 3 inches in diameter. And it doesn't have as much capacity as the internet does when you're using an app on your phone. So the image is not as high resolution as you might see on your phone. However, we've been working on that, and Simrad's also working on that as well. And I expect with future updates, this is actually going to look a lot cleaner and a lot better and a lot closer to what you're getting on your units right now. So in addition to looking at just the radar image, what we can do is also track how a storm's been moving. If we go back to our menu and back into the weather options, there's an animate feature. And when you select animate, then you have 2 options. You have a time period you can select and a speed you can select. So if we select time period, now we can see a scale 1 to 3 hours, and we can see where that storm was that was over Jacksonville 3 hours ago. And you can manually click and see where it was 2 hours ago and so forth. And we can also go back to the speed setting, and I can change the speed from manual over to one of these low, medium, highs. And then once I do that, the unit will play automatically basically film or historical data of what that storm's been seeing. So you can see how fast that storm is going. And I'll back it up here a little bit. If you look down in the lower corner, you'll see the timestamp on that storm, or basically the historical number on that storm. So we can see how that's been moving. And that can be really useful information. You know, we've had a lot of people tell us that they were out fishing and all of a sudden the sky looked really bad, and, you know, they were thinking about heading in, but they looked at it over here on Sirius and they were like, well, wait a minute, this is going to miss us. We should stay out here. And other people that ran for shore wound up getting clobbered, where some of the people stayed out and didn't. So this can be really useful to be able to track this storm and see which way it's going. So next, we're going to talk about lightning and what we call storm cell attributes. So the first one, lightning, pretty simple. Go back to your chart page, pull up your menu, go to your weather options. And this time we're going to go to turn on the rain back on here. I'm going to turn on precipitation. And then I'm going to flip back out and go to icons. So from the icons menu, you have several pieces of information, lightning being one of them. So if I turn on the lightning, now we're seeing lightning strikes associated with that storm. And these are all strikes that have occurred within the last 20 minutes. So the way it works is a strike will appear on screen. If it's older than 20 minutes, it disappears. So you can see at any given time what's going on with the lightning. And then another big advantage is the storm cell attributes. So if we turn the lightning off, turn on the storm cell attributes, you get these little symbols with the cloud and the arrow. And this big storm has smaller segments associated with it. And that's what these smaller segments, and you can see how they're breaking apart different directions. This is very helpful in keeping you out of the worst part of a storm. And you can actually click on one of these elements and it will give you even more information. The first click will give you, each of these cells is named and give you basic information. And then if there's any more details, if you click again, you'll get more information on that storm cell. So here it's giving us the height of the cloud top height. And basically the higher that number is, the worse that cell, the more severe that cell is. And it's giving us our speed and direction of that cell. And then another little symbol, in addition to the cloud with the arrow, that I wanted to call out for you tonight was this little guy right here. Looks like a tornado. Well, that's pretty much what it is. You click on that, it's going to say yes, mesocyclone. So this is actually, you know, it's either a tornado or a water spout that's occurring. And again, I give it another click, bring up some more information. It's going to give me the time it was spotted, the height of the top. And in this case, speed and direction is not known. That's probably because it was stationary at the time. It wasn't moving much, so it couldn't generate a speed and direction. So that's a symbol you want to make sure you stay away from, is that little guy right there. Next, we're going to talk about wind and wave, both current wind and wave information and forecasts. So here again, you want to go back to your chart menu, go to turn it on, and we're going to turn on the wave information first, and you can see screen rapid change here. Basically, that color that you're seeing is telling you what the wave height is. And there is a legend that you can turn on and have it screen. I believe I'll have it up here in in another screenshot. But basically, the way the color scale works, it goes from dark blue to red. Dark blue is waves that are 1 foot or less. And then it goes out as far as you've set the scale. It might be 17 feet, 20 feet. And also, where you set the cursor on screen, it will tell you down in the lower left corner what the wave height is at that location. So very quickly, you can get a handle on, what color it's sitting on and what that wave height is. And so looking at it full screen. And then the next thing is the animation feature. So just like with radar, we can go in, we can turn on our animation, and we can go look at our time period and our speed period. And if we select the time period first, so this is current. And again, now you see I've moved the cursor and it's showing the wave height here. Here's the legend showing up on screen. And you can adjust this height. So if you don't want to see 0 to 15 footers, if you just need to see 0 to 10 footers, you're not going to go out if there's more than 10 footers, you can adjust that scale accordingly. So we're looking at current conditions. And again, if we want to see something farther out, very quickly, we can see what it's looking like 12 hours from now. And you can see how that edge of that wave height changed when I went from current to 12 hours out. And then the next thing you can do is go back and turn your speed on, set my speed on a different setting, and then it will go through the motion very quickly. And you can see down here in the corner, it will change as it ticks through the different segments. And this computer model that we're looking at is part of our offshore weather package. And it goes out to 2 days or 48 hours out is how far out this computer model runs on the wind and wave information. Another note about wind and wave, you're seeing arrows here. That is the wave direction. And you're seeing numbers, that 8 second, 13 second, that S stands for seconds. So that's how far apart the waves are. So we basically have 3 pieces of information here all at the same time. We have our wave height shown as a color or where we have the cursor. And then we also have our wave direction and our wave period all wrapped into one nice tight little package at a glance. So next we're going to go talk about wind. And here you can see, turn on, here's my wind information over here on land. This is our wind symbol. On the legend, we have a scale that comes up that shows you that information. Basically, the little dot on the end, the shaft extending from that points into the wind. In other words, here we would say the wind is coming from the west at 10 knots in this symbol that I've circled. Over here offshore, we've got 35 knot winds out of the northwest. So it's humming out there when I took this screenshot. And here again, we can go and not only see what the winds are currently doing, but we can select to turn on the animation either manually or set it to run automatically. And we can see how it cycles through wind changes. So you can see down here in the corner, I'm at 18 hours. I can back it up. We can look at 9 hours. So you can see how that wind is changing. The forecast is changing over the next couple of days. All right. Next, we're going to jump over to marine zone forecasts, marine zone warnings. This is kind of an interesting one. When you go to your nautical chart page, navigation screen on your MFD, and you select marine zones, you have to say show zones. It will read where your local position is. But if you select show zones, then you can see the chart changes radically, and it just gives you a very crude base map with all these little sections. Well, there's a different weather forecast for each one of these sections. These are all independent marine zones, and the one selected in the green is the one that the unit will read. So you can select any one of these, it'll highlight, and then you can call up the information. So we can see, for instance, in this case, the Currituck Beach to Cape Hatteras forecast. And that forecast may be, 5 pages long. And again, this is not the same as the computer model we're looking at. This is a direct forecast from NOAA. This is that lovely garbled computer voice when you turn on the VHF that you can listen to. It's a lot easier here to click on an area than to try and listen to all the different areas they're talking about on the VHF. And then going back to that, here I've selected a smaller zone. And the reason I did this, if we bring it up, this area has a marine zone warning occurring. So if you get in an area where there's a marine zone warning, it's going to give you that information to let you know, hey, something even worse is happening in this area. And it's giving us the small craft advisory in this case for that area right there. And then just to show you what the marine warning is for, well, that's because that's when this was occurring. We had 35 knot winds, and they were right there at the mouth of Chesapeake Bay. So there was a small craft advisory in effect. And that's how the marine warning method works on the Simrad.
Our WM4, which is our weather module, 4th generation, we basically have a brains box, if you would, that hooks into a antenna that has to have visibility to the sky. Normally sits up in your T-top, or if you don't have a T-top, you can clearly put it on your center console somewhere out of the way. And then we take a high-speed video cable from that into your Simrad unit. So that's kind of how we get the weather and all the other features of Sirius Weather to display on the unit. That has a suggested retail price of $499 for the kit. Comes with all the pieces that are needed. And I think Geoff's going to talk a little bit about some promotions that are ongoing right now.
Yep. And I knew we had some inshore boaters that may be appropriate for Lowrance. So just know that the WM4 does work on the Lowrance, as well as for sailors on the B&G if you have a B&G aboard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as Scott mentioned, we do have a current $300 rebate for those of you who have not already purchased the WM4, or maybe you purchased it after March 1st. But for anybody who buys the WM4 between March 1st and June 30th, and then subscribes by July 31st, you are entitled to a $300 rebate. And you can find all those details and fill out the basic form at SiriusXM.com/marine rebate. We will send you a $300 Visa gift card at that point. So it really makes the unit very inexpensive at that point as far as the hardware itself. All right, there are 4 different plans with the Navico group of SiriusXM Marine Services. The first is the Inland, and it is a really just basic package. So the Inland service has an 80 nautical mile radius around your boat or around your receiver. It does not have forecast. It does not have sea surface temperatures. And if you happen to be out in the ocean, it cuts off about 10 miles offshore. So again, really basic service. The next is the Coastal package. And the Coastal package is much more robust. It does have some forecasting, but it does not go out as far as the Offshore package, which is the next offshore is the next package, as well as sea surface temperatures only go out 20 nautical miles. So if those features are valuable to you, then you may want to go with the Offshore package, which has, as Dan mentioned, forecasting up to 2 days or 48 hours, as well as sea surface temperatures that go out to our boundary. And by the way, our boundary is roughly 150 to 200 nautical miles off the coast. Our service signal is picked up. So you'll pick it up through the receiver in your boat. And then the final service is fish mapping, and that is really what we call a superset. That's all of offshore weather, as well as 8 dedicated fishing features for offshore anglers. And as I mentioned previously, we will be having a webinar on the dedicated to the fish mapping service for anybody who wants to join. That's SiriusXM.com/marine webinars. Also with fish mapping, I might add that we just created a new app. We heard a lot of feedback from our subscribers saying, I'm an offshore angler, but I don't plan when I get to the boat at 5 o'clock in the morning, especially for those in the mid-Atlantic and New England area. You're going out 50 to 100 miles and you want to plan from home at the leisure of your home from your smartphone, your iPad. So we have a new app that comes along with the subscription, the satellite subscription, and it is free along with the satellite subscription. You can't buy it separately. All right, a really helpful resource. And again, I think I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar that we will be recording this and sending it out to all of you. But there is a robust video library that we have. And there is a whole host of previous webinars and how-to videos specifically geared towards Simrad, Lowrance, and B&G. And you can find those videos at SiriusXM.com/marine library. On the SiriusXM side, if you need technical support, if you're having any issues with setting up our signal strength or just having some issues with your SiriusXM Marine Weather or fish mapping service, you can go to probably the best way to do it as opposed to calling the 1-800 number is emailing marine.support@SiriusXM.com. And typically you'll get a response within 24 hours. So that's the best way. marine.support@SiriusXM.com. And then Scott, I'll let you talk through the Simrad support.
Yeah, so we have a 1-800 number there that you can contact directly for our tier 1. And then you can also drop a email to that simrad.tech@navico.com for any questions or concerns on that. There are some videos floating around on the Simrad yachting website on YouTube as well for that. Some of these questions could be answered by utilizing that content as well.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time tonight. Hope you're enjoying the service. And remember to reach out if you guys have any questions. We really appreciate you.